Hi, welcome to History 1302. This is U.S. history since 1877. My name is Alfonso R. Lopez, and I will be your instructor for this class this semester. Now, what we're going to be doing in this video presentation is going over the syllabus. We're going to go over each section of this very, very important document, which is already available on Blackboard. It has been there for a couple of weeks. Um, and we're going to identify the major components of the course in terms of course materials, requirements, for example, the course description, the organization of the course, the method of instruction, how you're going to be learning this material. I will be explaining all of that in great detail. I will also talk about the exams, how many exams are there going to be in this course, how you can prepare for them as well. Extra credit assignments as well. I will be talking about that. And of course, I will be talking about also the term paper, or there's like a course assignment that is due at the end of the semester. I will explain everything you need to know about this course and how you can navigate this course on Blackboard and how you can excel as well. So this is a very, very important orientation that it's highly recommended, as a matter of fact, that you go over this video presentation as thoroughly as possible. If you can actually take notes, that will be also very helpful, because this is going to prepare you for this course. Now, let's get started by moving towards the syllabus. And as I mentioned, the syllabus is located on Blackboard. And again, this is the main platform. This is where the course is going to be taking place. You know, this is where you're going to find the assignments, and the weekly, for example, lectures are posted here as well. And it is on Blackboard that you are going to also submit all works, all of them. Okay, so it's very important that you learn how to navigate Blackboard. Okay, all right, so let's get started. Now, if you look at the left side, there's a menu column. This blue column, again, is full of links. Those are the major links to the course. I placed this class introduction video presentation at the very top. You can see here there's a link. It says class introduction. When you click on there, again, you're going to find this video. In that link, I will be also uploading the review sessions for the exams. So again, you know, there's going to be 3 exams, as I will explain, the first, second, and final exams. So I will be also posting there the review sessions. They're going to be short presentations for how to actually respond to the questions. You know, what is the expectation for you to actually, you know, what kind of answers I'm looking for, and so on. Just underneath the class introduction tab, there's going to be another link. It's called syllabus. When you click on it, what you'll find is a page. What I did is I created a syllabus page, not just a link to the syllabus, but rather the whole page is there. And again, this is a very, very important document. Now, if you need to download, of course, the syllabus, you can find also the link again to the Word doc. It's a Word doc, of course. If you want to save it on your computer, you know, keep it handy and so on. It's fine. All right, so let's start from the top, section by section. All right, so this is History 1302. My name is Alfonso R. Lopez. I will be your instructor for this class this semester. The fastest and easiest way to reach me is via email. I'm checking my email several times a day, every day. So more than likely you will receive a response within a 24-hour period from Monday through Friday. Now, it is only during the weekend that I might take 48 hours. Again, it's only in the weekend, like Saturday and Sundays, you know. But from Monday to Friday, you'll receive a response, you know, Sometimes in the same day, if you send the email quite in the morning, early, and so on, you'll get a response by that day. Okay, my email is listed there. It's alfonso.lopez@austincc.edu. And this is the fastest and easiest way to reach me for any question, concern related to the class, the assignments, the the lectures, and so on, all of that. Okay. All right. So this is an online course. It's asynchronous, meaning that we're not going to hold any designated class meetings. I will explain more thoroughly, about the format of the course in a few moments. Okay. Now, there is going to be a required text, although this is not a textbook per se, in that you will find a narrative of historical events and then you're following up on the lectures. Instead, this is a collection of documents. Okay, the required text for this course is just a collection of documents that were generated, produced, written by historical actors themselves. Okay, so it's just a collection of documents, in other words. Okay, is this textbook right here? It's very thin. You can see it's about 190 pages. So this is not the standard textbook. This is actually the companion, the reader to the actual textbook, but we're not going to use the actual textbook. We're just going to use the reader. It's a collection of primary sources or documents. Make sure you're getting the 4th edition. Okay, the 4th edition, because the reason why you need this book is to complete the course assignment that is due at the end of the semester. That is the only reason why do you need this textbook, that is to say. So what I've done is I've selected a series of documents from this text for you to read. They're very short, by the way, short reads, and then you have to answer some questions on those documents. So if you get any other edition, let's say the 3rd edition or the 2nd edition, you might not find the same documents that are contained in this book. Okay, so they will be missing documents, in other words. So it's very important that you get the 4th edition. I believe this book is sold at ACC Highland Bookstore, and new is for $20, and you can get it used for cheaper, $10 or so. You can also buy it online, by the way. If the ACC bookstore runs out, for example, of copies or so on, they're out of stock. Well, you can buy it online. Now, I recommend that you get this textbook sooner than later, because even though this assignment is due at the end of November, so you still have a lot of time to complete the assignment. Well, you don't want to wait until, let's say, November to start getting the textbook, and then you order it online. It's going to take about 10 days or 2 weeks to get there, and so on. So you want to have enough time to complete this assignment. So again, I highly recommend that you start ordering it maybe around September, maybe early October. So you have it on time to complete everything. Okay, so I provided the ISBN number there just to make sure that you're getting the right textbook. Again, you can just use that number there, and you're gonna get the exact textbook, the 4th edition. Okay, I'll talk about the course assignment in just a few moments. I'll get there eventually. Now, this is an online asynchronous course. So, as I mentioned, this class will be delivered fully online, and there will be no designated class meetings for real-time instruction or student instructor interaction, whatsoever. So again, this is a very flexible kind of schedule, because you get to really review the material on a weekly basis in your own time. There is really no pressure for you to be watching, the lectures on a set schedule, but rather, again, you're pretty much you're crafting, you're tailoring your own schedule as you go. So there is that advantage. And you need, of course, assistance or clarification if you are having trouble understanding parts of the lectures. Well, you can always email me, of course. Um, Send me an email and I'll respond, promptly. All right, so let's get to the course description rather quickly here. What this course is going to be about. So again, this is 1302, History 1302, which is U.S. history from 1877 to the present. This is the second half. So we're starting around more or less, give and take, at the end of the Civil War and the process of Reconstruction. We're not going to cover the Civil War and Reconstruction process. This is something that is covered in 1301, the first half. So we're picking up more or less around the end of the Reconstruction process, and we're going to examine U.S. history from, let's say, the 1870s onwards. Okay, and we're going to be paying attention to U.S. history not only from a political point of view, which is again kind of the standard way of looking at history. You look at politics, and you look at political parties, elections, presidents, and laws. And yes, of course, we'll get to see that. But this course is not just going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about American society. How was American society like in different periods of time? Okay, what kind of social groups were in the United States during this time? What were their contributions to the creation, the formation of the country as well? We're going to be paying attention to different social groups, like, for example, the American farmers, the industrial working class, the middle class. We're going to be paying attention also to minorities, of course, African Americans, Latinos, or Latinx, and European immigrants as well. We're going to be paying attention also to the lives of European immigrants. There will be an influx of European immigrants coming to the United States, Chinese immigrants as well. We're going to be paying attention to them. And of course, Native Americans. Native Americans are also part of the story in the United States as well. So again, there will be a very large component of social history, not just political history, but also social history, American society. That is to say, we're also going to be paying attention to the economic evolution of the United States, what kind of economic system the United States had in the late 19th century, the formation of industrial capitalism, for example, the Industrial Revolution. We're going to be talking about that. And of course, economic crises like the Great Depression. We're going to be paying attention to all of those issues, of course. There will be also some economic history. Besides the political and social, there will be also economic, and of course, intellectual history as well. What is intellectual history? Well, it's really the history of ideas. This is one of my strong emphasis or focus in this course, is that when we study history, it's also very, very important to understand how people were thinking in different periods of time as well. So what kind of ideas were important for people, the scientific discoveries, for example. We're going to be paying attention to science and technology, science, technology, but also religion. So everything that deals with the mind, in other words, how people were thinking, how people were studying the world, what kind of technologies were innovated, invented in different periods of time, and how those technologies changed the way people lived, and also the way people started looking at the world around them. Okay? So there will be a strong emphasis again on science, on technology, and also religious ideas as well. Okay? Now, another very, very important component of this course description is that when I'm teaching history, and by the way, it can be any course in history. It can be U.S. history, it can be Texas history, or uh, uh, Mexican American history, or the history of Mexico. I've taught, of course, a series of courses throughout my life. Uh, when I'm teaching history, my focus is to, of course, deal with the subject matter. For example, this is U.S. history. You'll be learning a whole lot about U.S. history, but at the same time, when I'm teaching history, I'm placing the history of a region or a country in what is called the global context as well. Okay, the global context. In other words, this course will be presented from a global perspective. So, what does that mean? You might say. So, what does it mean to be teaching U.S. history from a global perspective? Well, what it means is that besides learning about U.S. history, you're going to be also learning about the world at large, because the United States did not develop in isolation from the rest of the world. It was constantly connected and interacting with the rest of the world. So there's so many outside influences that were coming into the United States to shape the country. For example, I just mentioned European immigration or Chinese immigration or immigration coming, let's say, from Latin America, from Mexico. Okay, so there are peoples that are pouring into the United States, and they're bringing their own ideas. They're bringing their own traditions, their own cultures that, to a certain extent, get mixed in the whole. They become part of the larger American culture, if you will. So again, in this course, we're going to be paying attention to those ideas that are coming from other places. What kind of ideas the Europeans brought into the United States, or ideas that came from Mexico, from China, and so on, or the ideas that influence, for example, the scientific revolution in the United States. Ideas of science that were elaborated and formulated in Europe had a great impact in the formation of the United States as well. In the 20th century, of course, the United States begins to move outwards and begins to interact more and more with the rest of the world. The 20th century has been labeled as the American century. So, as the United States was moving into different parts of the world to conduct trade and so on, we're going to be learning about the societies that Americans were encountering as American merchants and investors and entrepreneurs and religious missionaries were moving into places like Mexico or Latin America. They were also moving into the Pacific Ocean, places like Hawaii, for example, or the Far East, China, and so on. We're going to be learning about those societies. Okay, so you'll be also learning simultaneously about the history of Latin America, the history of China, very briefly, by the way, of course, because our focus is on the United States. But you'll be learning also about other cultures as well. As Americans are moving out, again, it's important to understand how other peoples were living, what kind of ideas were important to the peoples of China or Vietnam or Korea, for example, or Mexico, and so on. So again, this is going to be a U.S. history taught from a global perspective. So you're going to really get a sense rather quickly as you start reviewing the material that you're really learning a whole lot about the world as well, not only about U.S. history. Okay, and another thing is that when I'm teaching history, I like to really integrate ideas from other disciplines, from other fields, to enrich the understanding of history. So when I'm teaching history, in other words, the study of the past, and the study of the past is the study of people, the study of human beings, well, for me, as a historian, the way to understand people is really to get into their minds, to get into their heads, in other words, how people really were looking at reality, how people were looking at the world around them, let's say in the late 19th century or in the early 20th century and so on. So in order to do that, I need to borrow ideas from other fields, like psychology, for example. So there's going to be a strong emphasis again on psychoanalysis. I like to pretty much understand a generation, let's say the generation of the 1920s, where consumerism started. This idea of consumption in the United States, skyrocketed. People were going out and buy a lot of consumer goods and so on. And I like to really understand why Americans during this time found consumption or consumerism so fulfilling. So in order to do that, what I do is that I borrow from psychology elements of analysis, psychoanalysis, psychoanalyzing people, what drives people to consumption and so on. I do that almost with every lecture. I really psychoanalyze an entire generation or a country, for example. Why people, for example, in the 1930s in Germany followed, for example, Hitler. Okay, I psychoanalyze a little bit Hitler, but also the German population as well, to understand their mindset. In other words, people have to be understood from within, to really understand their behavior, why people behaved in specific ways, or, So again, you're going to find that when you're listening to the lectures, you're going to find that I'm applying a lot of elements from psychology, in my lectures. I also apply elements from sociology. Sociology is the field that studies human societies, how human societies are formed, and how human societies change over time. I also apply sociological theories, in my lectures. I also apply philosophy, political science, religious studies, cultural studies again. So it's not just going to be a dry, version of history, but rather very animated. And I'm trying to bring, again, history alive in my lectures as much as possible. And in order to do that, I need to pretty much step outside of the field of history and kind of borrow ideas from other fields. Again, to really get into, once again, people's mindsets as much as possible. Okay, so as a whole, again, this is going to be a course that will cover U.S. history from 1877 from the present. Again, it's going to look at from a global perspective, and it's going to borrow elements from a multiplicity of different disciplines. Now, as we move along, this course is also going to be placing attention to the role that ideas, as I mentioned, whether are religious ideas or scientific ideas, technology, and also the environment. How, once again, ideas, whether we're talking about scientific ideas or religious ideas, technology, and also the environment, how those three elements were key in shaping the nation's history. Okay, the United States was not just moving politically forward, with members of Congress writing laws or presidents being elected, but also ideas were moving people forward. Ideas, whether they're scientific ideas or religious ideas, were actually, again, pretty much shaping the country, because this is the way that people see the world. And whenever there are new ideas that are introduced in society, people change the way they look at the world, and society change accordingly. So we're going to be paying attention to that again, how American society was changing over time as a result of new ideas that were introduced again in their own societies. Technology as well, we're going to be paying attention to technology. Again, we're living in a technological age, by the way, so we have to be paying attention to technology as well. And the environment, whenever the environment changes, human society changes. So we are also going to be considering also, again, the role that the environment plays in changing human nature and human societies, over time. Okay, so again, this is the course description and also the kind of emphasis that I place, when I'm teaching history. Now, the mode of learning, how are you going to be learning this material? Okay, So, the mode of learning. Well, the way you're going to be learning this material is through a series of recorded video lectures that are already available on Blackboard. Okay, so if you go back to the menu, for example, it says course content right here, here on the left, and there's a link titled instructional materials. You click on it, and this is going to open up a page with two main folders. The top folder is titled recorded video lectures, and the bottom folder is the lecture outlines and questions. So the top folder, the recorded video lectures folder, again, this folder contains all of the video lectures. In other words, I have recorded all of my classes already using a program just like this one. You know, this is the same software I'm actually using to record this class introduction. So it's identical to this. So when you open it up again, you will find 9 folders. And the reason why you're going to find 9 folders is because there are 9 topics that we're going to cover across the semester. 9. Okay, so all of my lectures are not delivered randomly, as you can see. In other words, on day 1, I'm not just talking about one particular thing, and then day 2, I shift gears, and then I talk about another, and then I go back and forth. But rather, what I do is that I organize all of this material into topics or themes. There are 9 topics. So whenever I'm discussing one topic, let's say the very first topic, the idea of progress in the formation of modern America, that's all I talk about for 3 lectures. So each folder, let us just say, you know, I'm opening this folder right here, has 3 lectures. Session 1, Session 2, Session 3. And they span about an hour and 20 minutes. So they're very similar to a face-to-face class in campus. And let's say you'll be taking this class again in person. Well, you have to attend 2 classes per day, okay? An hour and 20 minutes each. So it's very similar. You're going to get the same feel that this is almost like you're attending class, but rather you just, you know, watching it at home. This video is already recorded, and the lecture itself is an hour and 20 minutes. It might be a little bit longer, a few minutes, you know, maybe longer, maybe a few minutes shorter, but it's pretty much an average of an hour and 20 minutes. Okay. So there are 9 folders, and each folder has 3 videos in it. Okay. Each folder. So you have to be watching those videos progressively in this order. You know, the very first folder, you watch those 3 videos, you take notes as thoroughly as possible. And I say that because all of the exams will be based on the notes and nothing else. So you don't need to be concerned with, like, okay, I'm going to have to be following, you know, certain readings in articles or books, etc. You don't need that. To pass this class, you know, at least the exams, that is, what you need to do is watch those videos on a weekly basis. I'll be sending you emails, by the way. Okay? So every week, I will be sending you reminders or announcements through Blackboard. You know, I'll be emailing those that you need to be watching this particular, you know, session. There will be 2 sessions per week, you know, that you have to be watching. In other words, you know, that's pretty much the rhythm or the pace that must be followed to be in synchronicity, in other words, with the due dates for each of the exams. It's about 2, you know, to be more precise, it's actually 2 lectures per week. It's almost like you're attending a class in person that meets twice a week, let's say Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you have 2 classes per week. It's the same thing. So that's the expectation, is that if you want to be in synchronicity in this class, watching the material on a timely fashion, to be in sync, with the due dates for each of the exams, exam 1, 2, and the final exams. Again, you need to be watching 2 video lectures per week. So you start with the idea of progress. Uh, you watch those 3 lectures. Of course, you watch the first and the second, the first week, and then the next week. Okay, you finish it off, and then you start with the second folder, the socioeconomic transformations of the late 19th century. Of course, if you have the time to be watching those video lectures faster than just 2 per week, that's fine. There are students that actually have enough time to be just doing this, in other words. And they quickly pretty much watch everything, they take notes, and they're ready for the exam. Of course, I mean, that's fine. But this is just my suggestion that 2 per week, again, is pretty much what's needed. Okay? So let us go back to the syllabus. So again, there are 9 folders, and each folder has 3 video recordings or video lectures. Okay? So your responsibility is to be watching those video lectures. I will be sending you the announcements just to remind you that where we are. I mean, why are you going to be receiving those email announcements every week? Let's say each Tuesday and Thursday, I'll be sending you, like, you need to be watching now the first session of this topic or the second session and so on. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm letting you know where we are, in other words. Okay? I don't want you to be falling behind and leave everything at the end, and then suddenly you have to be watching like 15 videos, like in a week or so. Now, you want to avoid that. You want to be, again, pretty much covering the material section by section. That's the reason why I'm doing that, in other words. Okay? Why I'm sending those email announcements. Okay? So, now this material is organized into 3 periods of U.S. history. As I mentioned, there are going to be 9 topics that we're going to cover, but those 9 topics really are further organized into 3 main eras or historical periods. The first period is called Building Modern America from 1877 to 1900. So again, we're covering really the late 19th century in the very first historical period. And there are 3 topics. And every topic has 3 lectures. So we're going to be doing this for the first 5 weeks. The very first 5 weeks, what we're going to be doing is covering the first 3 topics of the semester. Once we cover those 3 topics, I'll be sending you the announcements, of course, week by week, which videos you need to be watching, of course. By the end of the 3rd topic, then we're going to have the exam. The first exam. And the first exam will be based solely on the first 3 topics, of course. And then we move forward for the next 5 weeks to cover the second historical era or period called the Crisis of Modernity from 1890 to 1939. And we cover 3 topics that deal precisely with the crisis of modernity. Topic 4, 5, and 6. So I'll be sending you the announcements again. This is what you need to be watching and so on and so forth, one by one. Okay? And then we have the second exam. That will be based on the 4th, 5th, and 6th topics. And the same holds true for the last historical period, the U.S. and the age of globalization, from 1939 to the present. There will be 3 topics: World War II, the Cold War, and the Civil Rights Movement. Once those are covered, then we have the final exam, and the final exam will only be based on the last 3 topics. It's not going to be comprehensive, okay? So again, this is very, very structured. This is not really a class that you're going to be just writing a lot of notes from different themes and topics, and then suddenly you have to make sense of the information because the information is already organized for you in this fashion. By theme, that is to say. Okay? So let's talk about the exams. I just mentioned there will be 3 exams. There will be 3 exams for this course. Each will be worth 25% of the final grade. So 75% of your final grade will be based on the exams alone. Okay, 75%. Now, what is really the format of the exam, you might ask? What are the exams are going to be like? Well, let me just say what exams are not going to be like, okay? So let's start with that. And the exams are not going to be uh, multiple choice or fill in the blank, or any of those kinds of exams with scantrons or anything like that. Nothing of that sort. On the contrary, the exams, the format is that you will be asked to answer a series of questions on one topic, and then you'll be also asked to identify and fully describe a couple of key terms from another topic. Okay? So this is very, very different. Again, is more about really understanding the material. You have to be watching those lectures, taking as many notes as possible on them, because you're going to use that data, you're going to use that information to answer the questions that will be presented to you, regarding those topics. So every exam is going to be very similar in that there will be a part 1 and a part 2. The first part, once again, requires that students answer all of the questions of one historical topic for 80 points or 70 points. It might vary. So let's just say 70 points. Okay, so 70 points from the exam comes from just answering the questions of one topic. So I just mentioned, for example, there'll be 3 topics to cover for the first exam. And I can tell you right now that the first topic right here, the idea of progress in the formation of modern America, that will be the topic that I extracted key terms from them, for part 2. So everybody, regardless, has to really watch the very first theme or topic, because in part 2 of the first exam, the key term section, the key terms comes from the idea of progress. So everybody has to do that. But part 1, the questions that you have to answer, you answer, of course, the questions of one topic. It can be topic number 2 or topic number 3. And you answer all of those questions as thoroughly as possible. Okay? So once again, I'm just letting you know that, again, for the very first exam, again, for part 1, you pick either topic number 2 or topic number 3 and answer all of the questions on that one topic. But for part 2, the key term section, which is 30 points, everybody has to watch the idea of progress. Everybody. This is a must. Again, if you really want to ace this class, or at least really earn a B at the very least, you have to do part 2. This is one of the most common problems I see, again, in students, again, in the past, is that they excel in part 1. They answer all of the questions of that one topic that they chose, and they get those 70 points. But then when I get to part 2, the key term section, they don't really address them. They just write a line or maybe a few lines, and and they forget about it. And so, they don't really get to even earn a B in the exam. That's a very common problem. You really want to, at the very, very least, earn, in part 2, 15, 20, 25 points at the very least, at the very, very least. So you really need to watch, again, the topic of part 2. And of course, that's pretty much already stated on the exams, on each of the exams. For example, when you go back, for example, if you see, for example, here, submit work first exam, second exam, and final exam, you can open each one of them. Let's say you say the second exam, what the second exam is going to be like, for example. Well, the instructions are already here. It's already telling you, in the second exam, for example, that, look, for part one, the topic section, it tells you choose one topic and answer all of the questions fully of that one topic for 70 points. And it's telling you, you choose either topic number 4 or topic number 5. Let's say you're very inclined to understand, or you really want to know everything about World War One. Well, you watch that, that topic. There are 3 videos. You watch it fully, you take notes, and then you answer the questions on that topic, and you earn 70 points. And for part 2, it's telling you, for the key term section, you have to watch the topic on the Great Depression. So everybody has to watch the topic of the Great Depression. That's not an option, because in the second exam, again, part 2 will be based on the Great Depression. And to earn those 30 points, this is 30% of the second exam. You must pick 3, whichever you want, of course, key terms, and identify those key terms as fully as possible. It's not just an identification. It's not like a dictionary kind of answer, but rather you need to fully elaborate, fully explain the key term. Okay? So again, I'm actually expecting, more than just a small paragraph. Once you get to see the explanation, for example, of those terms in the lectures, you're going to see that, well, I really spent a lot of time explaining them. So for you to just write a couple of lines and expect that I'm going to give you full credit, again, you have to just, be realistic. I really provided a lot of details, a lot of explanation, for example. So what I'm trying to get at here is that every exam, let's say the final exam, is telling you which topics you have to choose from and which is a must. Again, for part 2, here's, for example, the final exam is the same way. It's telling you, you pick either World War II or the Cold War and answer each one of those questions as fully as possible. As fully as possible. Again, for me, details are very important. That you elaborate, that you explain fully. Don't skip any information. Again, it's very important for me. And part 2, likewise, is telling you that to get the 30 points from part 2, the key term section, you need to be watching topic number 9 on the Civil Rights Movement and the Counterculture Revolution. So again, to get those 30 points, or at the very least 20 or etc., you need to watch that topic, okay? And answer those key terms as fully as possible. Okay, so the exams, the instructions are already telling you, which topics that you need to be watching, which one is a must, and so on and so forth. So let us go back to the syllabus. So those are the exams. This is the format. It's more like a writing assignment. They're not going to be timed. Those are not exams that are timed to take place on a specific day. You're going to have plenty of time. You're going to have all the time available, because they have a specific due date. We can just go down here to the section of the tentative course schedule, for example. It's telling you, for example, that Thursday, September 29th is when the first exam is due. So you have like 5 weeks to do it. Like 5 weeks to complete the first exam. Be watching those lectures and then get the notes and then be answering those questions. It's almost like you have this little term paper, if you will. That's what the first exam, the second and final exams are like. Like this paper in which your main source of information is really the lecture. Okay? The video lecture. That is your main source of information. Okay? You have about 5 weeks to do it. It's telling you that the second exam is also due on November the 1st. So you have another 5 weeks to go over the material, those topics, those lectures, and then be ready to upload your work by November the 1st. And then he's telling you also that for the final exam is due on December the 6th. So you have an additional 5 weeks to cover the last three topics and then upload the final exam. Again, so you have plenty of time, really. Again, it's a very, very flexible course. All right. So remember, details are very important for me. Details. You have to be very detailed, very thorough in your explanations. Don't skip data. I don't know. Because you assume that I know what you're talking about. So you mention certain things, but you didn't really explain them. I cannot really measure, how much you actually learn and review the material. You don't really explain it in your own words, of course. So you have to be very descriptive and very detailed, okay? Now, there's a lot of flexibility in this course to pass it and to really improve your grades, because I have actually provided extra credit assignments. Everybody's entitled to those extra credit assignments, regardless of your grade standing, etc. Again, this is available. It's optional. Those are not mandatory. So if you want to improve your grades, one way you can do it is, again, do 1, 2, or the 3 extra credit assignments that are posted on Blackboard. All the instructions are there. For one of them, you need to read an article. The other 2 extra credit assignments, you have to watch a documentary. So 2 of those extra credit assignments are based on documentaries, and 1 is based on an article on the Wizard of Oz, in American society. So for each extra credit assignment, you can actually add up to 10 points to any of the exams. So let us just say that in the first exam, you happen to get like a 75, okay, for some reason. Well, you want to make sure that you're going to ace this course. So one way to do it is, do an extra credit assignment, and you get to improve that grade and make it an 85. Okay? Now you're getting closer to the A, Or you can do the other 2. You can do 3, extra credit assignments and, add 10 points to each one of the exams. That's another way. Okay? So it's very, very flexible. As I mentioned, there's going to be 1 course assignment. And that is the only assignment for this course. And that is a report that is due at the end of the semester. It's actually due on December the 2nd. Okay? So you have plenty of time to do it. Now, this is where this textbook comes in. As I mentioned, this small text is $20 new or so, around that range. I selected 10 documents for you to read. They're short reads, by the way. Each document is about 2 pages, maybe 3 pages long. So it's an easy read, and your responsibility is to answer a series of questions on each one of those documents. You might say, okay, so what are those documents? What are the page numbers? And what are the questions? All of it is provided in the syllabus. There's also, of course, a section I'll show you in just a few seconds where you can find all of the assignments as well, including this one again on Blackboard. But the syllabus has even the instructions to complete the study questions report. It's telling you right here the page number, the chapter number, the title, and also the questions that you need to answer as well. Okay? Each one by one, again, is telling you the page number, the chapter number, the author, the title, okay, and the questions one by one. Okay, one by one. The expectation is that the answers per document must be 1 page double space per document. So let's say you're addressing, the buffalo harvest right here. There's a couple of questions on this document called the buffalo harvest. Well, the answers to those two questions must be one page, double space. The same for the next document on children's labor, etc. You go one by one. The answers must be a page, double space. Okay? So at the end of the report, you have to end up with 10 pages, double space. This is a 10-page report, double space. You have the whole semester to do it. This is due December 2nd. Okay? This is the only assignment. You want to call it a term paper, etc. I call it a report, by the way. Okay? Because that's what it is. If you're citing, just, use any citation method. When you're supposed to cite, well, you're supposed to cite whenever you're borrowing passages from the book word for word. Let's say you want to cite something, like a paragraph or maybe a sentence from there, or there's some statistics, whatever the case might be. Well, you're getting direct information, word for word information. Just use any citation method. Any. It can be MLA, it can be footnotes, it can be anything. I think the easiest way for this kind of report will be just to write the page number in parentheses at the end of the quoted paragraph or sentence. So if you quote something directly from this book, just write the page number at the end of it in parentheses. Okay? You put a parenthesis and you put PG or just page, for example, and then you put, the number. And that will be sufficient. That's fine. At least you're providing us, a citation, where you got it from. It's understood that you're getting it from this book, of course. Okay. So that is the easiest way, again, to go about, citing, for example. Okay. This is again due on Friday, December the 2nd, and again, it's a very simple assignment to complete. Now, I mentioned that there's a section on Blackboard that has all these instructions for the exams and the report, and it is right here. It says course assignments. When you click on it here, under course content, course assignments, you will find the instructions for the first exam, second exam, final exam, the study questions report, and the extra credit assignments. So if you're really looking for the instructions, if you're kind of lost where where the instructions for the report or the extra credit assignments, everything is right here under course assignments, all the instructions. Where you submit the works, right here in this section it says submit work, you submit all of your exams, the report, the extra credit assignments, all of are submitted right here. You click on each one of them. There's going to be an upload tab, for you to upload either the text or the file and so on. It's very simple. Okay, so let's go back to the syllabus so we can actually just finish our discussion of the syllabus and how, for example, now we're moving into grading. The distribution is really very simple. There are 4 major grades. Those are the main grades, and that is the first, second, and final exams. They're 25% each. So 75% of your final grade comes from the exams. The study questions report is 25%, so that's 100 points. Now, remember, you have the extra credit assignments, so you can actually improve your exams grades by 10 points each. That's a whole letter grade, by the way. Again, so you have to contemplate that there's a lot of room for improvement, that your grades are not set in stone. You can change them, because there's the extra credit assignments. But also, another factor that I take into account When I'm actually calculating the final grades, I go one by one, every student one by one in my Excel sheet. Again, what I'm actually doing at the very end is when I'm calculating grades, I also factor in effort and progress. Okay, keep that in mind. That look, if you completed everything, you turned in the first, second, and final exams, you completed the report, and you also did some extra credit assignments. That's a lot of effort. Really, I mean, you submitted everything. That's a lot of effort, to say, you know what, I completed everything. There's no missing grades. And in fact, I also completed a couple of extra credit assignments. So for me, that's a great effort and commitment. And that has to be factored in the equation as well. So if you end up, let's say, with an 88.75 grade average, and you really did all this effort, and you improved, let's say from the first exam to the second and final exam, you were going upward again, moving upward, let's say from a 78 to an 85, and then the final exam, you happen to have earn a 94, and then you submitted a couple of extra credit assignments, but still you ended up at the 88.785 or something like that. Well, okay, I'm going to actually give you the A because you were improving over time and you also submitted extra credit assignments. So that has to be taken into account as well. Okay, so please understand that there is plenty of room for improvement in this course, and that even if you end up really close to the mark, let's say with an 88.75 or an 89 and so on, I can give you the final push if I see that you were really trying, if you submitted every work and that you also completed extra credit assignments and the like. Again, the same holds true for, let's say, if you were in a 79, let's say, grade average, but you were really trying, you were really, again, demonstrating the willingness to improve your grades and so on. Well, again, those can be rewarded as well. Okay, those are important also calendar dates for the fall, and that is the first day of class, of course, is August 22nd. Labor Day, September the 5th, there will be no classes. The last day to drop a class or withdraw will be November 17th. Keep that in mind. Again, if for some reason you will not be able to complete the class for personal emergencies and the like, again, you have until November 17th again to withdraw. Thanksgiving holiday will be November 24th to the 25th. The final exams is that week of December the 5th to the 9th again. And grades are due, by the way, on December 12th. Okay, so I have to submit all grades by that due date. Okay, and at the very end, again, we got this tentative course schedule and assignments. It tells you week by week, what we're going to be covering. So for this very first week, your responsibility will be to watch the class introduction Tuesday, and then the very first video that you have to watch, that I will be sending you the announcement, will be Thursday. So for this very first week of class, you have two videos to watch. One is this class introduction, and then on Thursday you begin pretty much watching the video lectures. I'm going to send you an email announcement on Thursday saying you need to watch the first session of the first topic of the semester, which is the idea of progress in the formation of modern America. Okay, so we're going to be moving week by week in this fashion. I'll be sending you 2 announcements per week, Tuesday and Thursday, indicating which videos you're supposed to be watching. Okay, and then it tells you when we're going to be having our first exam, September 29th. Likewise, for part 2, it tells you week by week which topics we're covering, and then when we're going to have our second exam, which is Tuesday, November the 1st. And then for the third and final part of the course, it tells you also which topics we're going to be watching, when the study questions report is due, to remind you December 2nd. I will send you also an email announcement, prior to that due date, just to remind you that, the study questions report is due on December the 2nd. And then the final exam has to be submitted by December the 6th. Okay? This is, again, how we're going to be organizing the course. I did everything I could to organize it in a very structured way for you not to get lost. Again, it's very easy to navigate the Blackboard page, and you can identify it rather easily. Again, the main links and the like. And the lectures are also organized in a very structured way as well. Again, is that there are themes that we're following one by one, of course. And the exams are all based on the lectures as well. Again, it's very, very straightforward. All right, so this is all I have for you. If you have any questions regarding this class introduction video or the syllabus, the assignments, the exams, or the textbook, please let me know. Send me an email, and I will respond immediately. Once again, from Monday to Friday is within a 24-hour period, and it's only during the weekends that I might take about 48 hours. Okay? So, once again, this is History 1302. My name is Alfonso R. Lopez. I will be your instructor for this class this semester, and I'll see you then in those videos, in those recorded videos presentations. The very first one you're going to be watching will be on Thursday. See you then in those videos. Thank you.